Judge bench that was hearing the case of impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Now, this is the thing. I want us to take a look at the papers today and now come back and try to make sense of the news that you're waking up to this particular morning, and also what will be shaping conversation for the next, a few days as far as the impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is concerned. I want us to start with the People Daily, and the headline on the People Daily says why President picked Kindiki as a new deputy. This is a story on page 5 of this particular newspaper. Let's just take a look at what that is saying. And it says fresh details have emerged on why President William Ruto settled on Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki as his nominee for the position of deputy president. Documents seen by the People Daily show that Kindiki battled it out among 5 other candidates who had been shortlisted for the second-in-command position following the decision of the Senate to uphold the National Assembly's impeachment on Rigathi Gachagua. Now, the details show that among the candidates who had been initially shortlisted for the position include Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, Leader of Majority Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah, Governors Anne Waiguru Kirinyaga, Embu Cecily Mbarire, and Irungu Kang'ata of Murang'a. Now, the race was then, however, narrowed down to 3 candidates, that is Kindiki, Ichung'wah, and Mbarire. Now, it was revealed that Professor Kindiki's Mount Kenya roots, Gachagua hails from the region, and the Kenya Kwanza pre-election agreement favored the constitutional lawyer. There is also impression that the CS was not such a polarizing figure and enjoys support across Kenya Kwanza. Now, the president was given a long list on the evening of October 17th, and by the end of the day, he had settled on 3. And then later on, Kindiki, after he emerged as the top contender. That is the source disclosed that particular information, and that is a story on page 5. Of course, you can get that information on this particular newspaper on page 5. Still on the same page, Ruto files challenge to Gachagua's suit against impeachment trial. Now, President William Ruto has filed a preliminary objection seeking to stop the High Court from handling a case challenging the impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua through lawyer Adrian Kamotho. The president has argued that the court lacks jurisdiction to hear and determine the petition. He also argues that it is an abuse of court process. Of course, you're going to be getting into the details of this particular petition. Now, still on the same page, of course, you can see Remy Majala there, redefining morning vibe, redefining taste for good breakfast every morning. Morning vibe, of course, will be coming later on after I leave this particular studio in just about 2 hours from now. Of course, still back on the top page of the People Daily, we have MPs query 1 billion shilling sports academy construction deal. This is a story on page 3 of this newspaper. Now, regions with highest concentration of women batters. This is a story on page 3 of this particular newspaper. And also on matters education, CS Ogamba speaks tough on exam cheating as KCSE starts. This is a story on page 2. I want us to take a look at page 3 and just bring you up to speed with that and what it is saying. And this is Kakamega tops 4 counties on gender violence, a list of shame. Now, among 4 counties surveyed, gender-based violence is most prevalent in Kakamega, with more than 50% of women reporting they had experienced physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. A new survey shows. The survey by the International Care for Reproductive Health Care names and shames 4 counties where GBV is more prevalent in Kenya, indicating that these forms of abuse persist in the country. Neighboring Bungoma follows with 47.4%, while West Pokot in the North Rift ranks third at 44.3%. That is what the People Daily is reporting this particular morning. That's an interesting study there and survey, of course, when issues to do with gender-based violence. Let's take a look at what's happening on the Standard newspaper. And the Standard says top story here is high cost of getting rid of DP Gachagua. Now, a bar of the country's finest lawyers has been tapped to litigate the case that should see the impeached deputy president either retire from public life or retain his seat. Now, this coupled with efforts, time and resources used to mobilize MPs makes the process an expensive affair, and it is just the beginning. The story is on page 4 and 5 of the Standard. Another story making headlines on this particular newspaper is House of Convenience of MPs and Priorities. Members of the National Assembly are being criticized for having taken a break after impeaching the DP. But on matters Mwananchi, those can wait. This is a story on page 6. Let's take a look at that, because now, since I have members of parliament on set, I think we'll be getting into that. Now you can see them, then you don't. This has become the fleeting nature of lawmakers who are seen and hardly only when fomenting a national crisis before vanishing to numerous recesses. In the last 4 months, they have done it twice, leaving the country on the throes of a revolution. First, it was in June when they defied the public outcry and hurriedly passed the Finance Bill of 2024. Immediately after it was passed, the country erupted in violent protests, which saw, among other things, Parliament and Supreme Court desecrated by protesters, marking the climax of the Gen Z demos, which claimed over 60 lives. Now, the MPs holed up in Parliament later fled the city and could not address any gatherings in their constituencies, including churches, and only found their tongues after President Ruto dropped it and sacked the cabinet. This is a story on page 6 of the Standard. Another story making headlines on this newspaper is Ruto money men face acid test in Washington, D.C. Story on page 8. And pain of housing tax here to stay. It is a major loss for Kenyan workers who will now pay for houses they may never live in after the controversial levy was okayed by the High Court yesterday. On Matters World, Blinken hopes 11th visit to Gaza will unlock peace deal. Of course, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left for the Middle East Monday on a new push for an elusive Gaza ceasefire 2 weeks before U.S. polls. This is a story on page 22 of the Standard. I want us to take a look at what's happening on the Daily Nation. And the Daily Nation is reporting this morning, eyes on judges, of course, a photo of the 3-judge bench led by Eric Ogola, Anthony Murima, and of course, Frida Mugambi. That is during the hearing of a case on the impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua at the Milimani Law Courts in Nairobi yesterday. Another story making headlines on this particular newspaper is Varsity Dons issue another strike notice in pay dispute. Now, public university lecturers have issued a 7-day strike notice after failing to agree with the government on the implementation of a return-to-work formula they signed barely a month ago when they boycotted work demanding better pay. Now, the strike threat will further disrupt learning in institutions following another go-slow last month. This is a story at the back page of this newspaper. Another story here is, of course, what we've just taken a look at on the Standard, and that is Ruto's big win as court upholds his pet housing plan. Now, President William Ruto received a major boost yesterday after the High Court gave the affordable housing program a clean bill of health. A 3-judge bench dismissed 6 petitions challenging the Affordable Housing Act, saying the law met the required threshold of public participation before it was enacted. Detectives probing job scams suspects moved to Bonny Forest far-flung stations. That's a story on page 11. And of course, court drama impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua yesterday stalled a petition seeking to lift an order blocking the swearing-in of his successor as he questioned the role of Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu in naming a 3-judge bench hearing the case. While he argued this was exclusive, it was the exclusive mandate of Chief Justice Martha Koome, the respondents countered the CJ had delegated. What will the court decide? Of course, we are waiting for that decision today at 3 p.m. When that ruling will be made. Of course, that's on the newspapers today and what you're waking up to as far as the dailies are concerned. I want us to take a look at this and try to make sense of what you're waking up to. And I believe I start with what the Nation. Is it the Nation that was reporting this particular story? No, it was yes. Let's start with the issue to do with the housing levy, and of course, top story on the dailies today. want to introduce my guests once again. Of course, Honorable Ruku has joined us. Thank you so much for making time. Watu wa Mbere wanasema nini?
Mbere is good.
Waiting for the deputy president.
Yeah,
I want DP to go.
we people are excited. Finally, the sun is rising from the east.
The sun is finally the sun is rising from the east.
Yes.
You've been denied that opportunity.
Yeah, for over 63 years.
Forever.
So
But is Kidiki nice?
so the sun is finally rising from the east, and I think is a turning point moment for the regional politics of our area. A turning moment, and I'm sure this is going to continue for another 17 years.
17 years, what do you mean?
We will ensure that Professor Kithure Kindiki is going to remain together with President William Ruto. Come 2027, there will be the same ticket, form the next government, and we will campaign very vigorously for Professor Kindiki to be the next president of the Republic of Kenya come 2032.
Okay, so
Is it about the tribe or is it about a Kenyan who is able to deliver? Because where I disagree with my brother is when we try to focus on our tribe.
I have not mentioned the tribe anyway.
You know, he said.
I have not mentioned the tribe. What I have mentioned, I've just said east. Even Kwambani, we say it's Roa East. So I have not mentioned tribe anywhere.
So it's 17 years of that particular ticket that, if at all, he's going to be, sworn in.
It's another 7 years for William Ruto Kindiki ticket. Then there will be another ticket for Kindiki and someone else. Maybe Kindiki Marian or Kindiki Basil.
How do you plan to? What's the plan? How do you plan to ensure that that is, from what you've said, 17, it's actually a success?
It's to ensure that the issues of Kenyans are properly addressed through the vehicle which we have chosen, and this vehicle is Professor Kindiki. And out of all the members of parliament who are present in the National Assembly, all of them, no single abstention, no one voted no, 2 that 6 members endorsed Kindiki. That's a huge confidence, serious confidence we have, or the National Assembly members have, with Professor Kithure Kindiki. So this is the kind of thing we are saying. If he is able to take the issues of Kenyans, address the issues of Kenyans, regardless of where you come from, whether from Mandera or Ramu or Kakamega or Bondo, the issues affecting Kenyans is the bottom line. The common denominator is the issues which are affecting Kenyans. Okay. And these issues of education, issues of security, issues of health. For instance, health is a major problem at the moment. Okay.
There's been an argument that the reason as to why some members, the deputy president's seat has been hot is because we have second in commands who have presidential ambitions, and that to some extent being a threat to the first in command. If you started voting Kindiki at the moment.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It depends on how you conduct yourself.
Okay.
For instance, we have a case where someone has been mentioning Mount Kenya region more than you mention about Kenya. You are in the office we call the presidency, the symbol of the national unity. We want to be united as a nation. Kenya is one indivisible nation.
Okay.
Chapter 10 of our constitution talks about national values and the principles of governance. These are issues which need to be seen, being espoused by the presidency, by the president and the deputy president.
Okay.
So it's not about who is the president, who is the deputy. It depends on your demeanor as the president, as well as your demeanor as the deputy president.
All right.
If your demeanor is
we'll come back to that because
it's chaotic.
We'll talk extensively on issues to do with the second in command and what is happening in the country as far as that is concerned. But I want you to comment on the courts actually upholding the housing levy, and this is
us to comment on that one as well.
Yeah,
because I
because
think
you
it is
see-
a very important thing, and it's important for
we
this
wanted to
country.
know
Yeah,
first.
just 1 minute
because
And
actually.
I'm saying this,
Yes.
that will be the basis of our conversation this morning. So
Yeah.
we'll have a lot of time to talk on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start with this.
I wanted to first for my brother Ruku to say why Kidiki was not picked in round 1 and why the president settled for Rigathi. Because there must be a genesis of where we are today.
Okay.
Because there is a reason why Kidiki could not be on the lineup, you know, why he was not deputy in 2022. So that one should have been expounded more by him.
Okay.
And then number 2, the other thing he mentioned about is the principles of governance as enshrined in Article 10 of the Constitution. If you look at the president and the deputy, and you ask many Kenyans, they'll tell you most of them tend to be reading from the same script when it comes to issues to do with tribalism, for example.
Okay.
Because you find, if you do profiling of the appointments, I would even pick a permanent principal secretaries, you find there's one community which will dominate over the other communities. If you go to directors of respective parastatals or the CEOs, one community will dominate over another community. And if you listen to number two, what was making was more of pronouncing it, you know, saying Murima and all that. So if you do a genuine analysis, a candid one, without being biased, you'll find the two seem to be reading from the same script, which is again the Article 10 of the Constitution. So we want to know what value will our deputy bring, because Kenyans want to see some fairness when it comes to distribution of services, some fairness when it comes to appointments, some fairness when it comes to entire principles of governance, as stipulated in Article 10.
Now that we refuse to move away from this,
Yes.
And that is where that is where now my brother is like, you see, it's like when let's say you have like what we say in my community. Assume you have some concerns, let's say border issues, and here you bring a village manager or a chief who seem to have been seen beyond before coming, in other words, who has been bribed. This chief will not be impartial. He goes to take sides. So the same approach Ruku has said, because you know now Kidiki seemed to be very close to Ruku's community, being the Rakas and Beres even speak almost the same language.
Okay,
and that is where
to talk about
now
that, because
Ruku is super excited.
Honorable
And you heard what he said.
No, wait. I need to
Let's have
bite
a
on the
Miriam.
cherry as well. You know, the presidency is a very important arm in our government, because yes, we have 3 arms of government, which is the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, and each have distinct roles. But the same constitution actually elevates the presidency to be the uniting or unifying factor of all the 3 arms of government. And therefore, the presidency needs to be in harmony, at peace, to be able to do now the uniting and allow that work be done. Remember again that the presidency's role is implementation. So everything we talk about, when Kenyans say we want roads, when Kenyans say we want electricity, when Kenyans say we want whatever it is that they want, the person implementing that will be the executive. Executive is headed by the presidency. If at the presidency level, these 2 people who sit there in one house are not agreeing, then it becomes difficult for work or whatever it is that the Kenyan people want to be able to be implemented. And remember,
can they be sat down and told that, by the way, you need to
you know, you
issues?
can sit down, everybody. Even us here today, we sit and agree. But when it reaches a point where I refuse to listen, I refuse to agree with the rest of the panelists here, you'll have to stop the show and allow that this one of us, if it is maybe the problem, get out, and then the rest can now continue with a discussion.
Yeah, we are not
you
getting
know,
there,
no, of course we'll not reach there because we are civilized people. But I'm trying to say that there are instances when, of course, you know, you don't expect that we are 2 different people. You don't expect that everybody will always agree. But when you don't agree, they always say democracy comes in. And democracy is about minority have their say, majority have their way. Okay. And that is what is allowed. And therefore, even when the Constitution and the framers of the Constitution came up with the offices of deputy president and deputy, they actually said the deputy president is the principal assistant. And I think when you understand that word, principal assistant, it then tells you you're just a level below, meaning that at the end of the day, the president will carry the dream. But you as a principal assistant will help him carry the dream. And how will you help him? Like, for example, in this particular, in our Kenya Kwanza government, the deputy president position has been given the role of sitting on cabinet subcommittees, so that by the time decisions reach cabinet, they are already sieved to a point where it is only about a decision being made. And that is the principal assistantship we're talking about.
Okay,
when
so
it
what
comes
happens
to things
to
about
the argument that has been thrown around in terms of having an independent mind, that you could agree and sometimes you don't agree?
And that is where we say that it is about being a principal assistant, and minority will always have their say, but majority will have their way. So if you don't agree, you have a panel where you will talk. And remember, this is where we call cabinet. And cabinet is not two people. It's not the president and the deputy. It has the president, deputy, cabinet secretaries who sit together and all collectively come up with a decision. And that collective decision is the one that, even if you didn't agree with it, it is a collective decision that has been taken, and actually you go with that decision. And that is what we need to understand. Looking at the candidature of Kindiki, for one, we don't need to necessarily be friends, but can we work together? His kind of politics and his kind of way of doing things, we've seen how he's done in interior. He is a person who is meticulous, attention to detail. Okay. And that is what you need a gel in politics. One who looks at politics, the political environment, and the other who looks at attention to detail. Because tomorrow, like the issues we have with SHIF today, the issues we have with SHIF could be 1-2 small issues that require a little attention. And that is all you need, a principal assistant to help you put the nuts together to hold this table tight.
And Kindiki
that
is
is
the
all
right
you
person.
need. In my view, I think that is the right person for that.
When you are proposing Kindiki, when Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was still in office, one of the things that was said, we are choosing Kindiki so that he becomes our link with the president, and will be able to address our issues as a region to the president. So now that he's become the deputy president-elect, if at all he gets to ascend to this particular office, do you choose somebody else that is going to be now driving the agendas of the region? I would like to understand that.
That's a very good question. The reason was why we were talking about the ring is because that ring was not there. And since Kindiki will soon be, probably, we don't know when, let the wheels of justice proceed the way they are proceeding, regardless of time they are going to take, whether it is 1 week or 2 weeks, let the courts do their work. And finally, when we get Kindiki sworn in as the deputy president, he still remains the ring. We would have been very lucky that we have someone in the executive who can now be able to address the issues of concern of the people, because the people want water, they want health, they want roads, they want an environment which business can thrive. That's so the kind of the ring we are talking about. Since he'll be there in executive and in presidency, we will not be talking of any other person as a link to the executive.
So he's the link between the mountain and the executive in terms of the interests that are supposed to be coming to your region?
It's not about the mountain.
Yeah.
Here it's not about the question of the mountain. We were only talking about on behalf of the people we represent, who comes from the mountain then. But now, even the people from the Rift, they are okay with Professor Kindiki that he can be a proper ring to address the issues of their concern, whether it is tea, whether it is coffee, whether it is their roads and water and whatever it is. So we were so disappointed with the previous the way things they were working, because we didn't have. President is too busy with so many things. Remember, there's time President trying to move each and every to too many countries out there, so that he can be able to stabilize the macro and micro economic issues of our nation, to have friends out there who can support this country. Look at it. We have been able to stabilize the prices of commodities, the prices of the price of Dora against Kenyan shilling, the prices of fuel. That is not a simple job. When the president is busy doing that, we expect his principal assistant to be addressing our concerns. And our concerns is not about Mlima. Our concern is about when are we going to get our own tarmac? When are we going to get last mile connectivity? When are we going to get water, which is required? How are we going to address the issues of education, which is a major problem? When the funding problem is the funding model is a major problem. Okay. So these are the issues. But now when we wake up and start saying, I can see some darkness at the end, you know, what are you telling us? Okay.
What I would have asked Brother Ruku is to be, from a very honest point of view, to say that, or to confirm to us, if he would say the same words or use the same words, if the president did pick someone from, let's say, Western, because we heard that there were rumors that the president was supposed to get Gladys.
We read here why Ruto picked Kindiki.
So assume the president went for Gladys Wanga as the deputy president. Would Ruku still use the same words as he's saying now, if for sure it's not because the person who was picked is not like by extension a relative? Because if you talk of the Rakas and the Beres, by extension they're actually relatives.
So that question, let me pose it to
and
him.
I would want him to, I want him to genuinely tell me if he will say the same words or use the same words.
Would you have
Maybe,
felt
no,
shortchanged?
let me be the arbiter in between here. You know,
2 minutes.
this country is about 44 plus number of communities. Yeah. And it is nice that we balance this country. If I look at Nigerian politics, for example, they always have what they call the North and South. So if the president comes from the South this time, the next time they actually do negotiate it, and the presidency goes to the North. Okay. Now that the presidency is in the rift, I think it would be only fair to have the other arm on this other side of Kenya, so that Kenya feels like we are actually represented.
Okay. For which other side? Which other side specifically?
Where we're talking about the mountain, whether east or west or central or whatever it is.
Why not the lake though?
Or even, the lake is, it could be the coast. It could be the coast. Why not?
All right.
Yeah, even Turkana, we are within the rift.
Just, we are coming back. We are coming back. We still have a...
Remarked by Honorable Basit.
You will recounter that when I come.
Full of marriage, ethnicity.
All right, we are due for our first break.
Division,
we are coming back in a few.
What Ruku is failing to understand. Yeah. Actually, the Rakas and Kambas, we also